Hello and welcome to our final project video for our game titled Path of Artifacts. My name is Ross and I'm joined by Sydney and Paul. And our game is a 2D platformer adventure that is based around finding collectibles and progressing throughout the game. We'll go into more detail further in the video. For this game, we decided to use Rust as our primary programming language because Rust is high performance and it's memory safe, which is great for game development. Along with Rust, we use the Bevy game engine built for Rust, which is a relatively new game engine that has a lot of useful features such as asset loading and audio implementation that allowed us to add images and soundtracks to our game. Along with Bevy, we use the LDTK map creation tool, which creates tile-based maps, which we use to create multiple levels and entities in our world, such as the player and the collectible entities. Uh, Along with that, we use the entity component system library, which creates entities within the world, and then it allows us to attach components to those entities. For example, the player could have health as a component or position and velocity as components. Furthermore, we use the Rapier 2D physics engine for our game that had a lot of useful features such as gravity, colliders, sensors, among many others. And last but not least, we used Wasm in order to be able to compile and import our game to a web browser as per requirement.
My name is Sydney and I helped work on many of the assets as well as the code functionality. Upon starting the game, the player has two buttons shown, and one of the buttons is the About button where they could see a description of like the general story. The key inputs that the players could use are WASD or the arrow buttons, and then like the jump key to jump. There is a death condition where if the player either falls out of bounds or they fall into lava, they'll die and they'll be reset at the start of their entrance that they came into. The sound assets that were used in this game were all created by me. I used programs such as FL Studio and Ableton Live, and I also used extra VSTs such as Spitfire Labs, Surge, and Zebralet or Zebralight to create these themes and sound effects. The player assets that were used were referenced from Atomic Realms character assets for the animated robot. I took that sprite sheet and I referenced it to create our own character asset. The collectible assets that were used were created by Ross. All the assets that were used for the sprite creations were created via a website called Piskel. So the game basically follows an unnamed character that is imprisoned in a foreign planet, and they're being tested. They're like a test subject, and so their goal is to escape this testing facility in order to become free. But to the player's surprise, at the end of the game, the scientists deemed the player as too valuable of a test subject and they store them in a prison. And that's how the game ends.
Some of the issues and obstacles that we as a group ran into during the development process was utilizing and learning new technologies, especially a new language, Rust, that constantly has a lot of changes being implemented into it and constantly has a lot of updates to its libraries. For example, our game engine library called Bevy was updated to a new version that invalidated a lot of our code, so we had to manually roll back the game engine version. Um, Another problem that we had was that we didn't have a specific game dev IDE like Unity or Godot has, for example. So we had to implement all the features in the game in code using Rust. which didn't necessarily always have the best documentation or the most up-to-date documentation. But nevertheless, it was a great time collaborating as a group to overcome these challenges, and it was a very informative and fun project to do. Thank you.